It's so powerful. I cried watching this series. I think for people of like Middle Eastern background, like we really have never seen in the English language, in a comedy, like you say, he brings in comedy to talk about a really deep and dark subject and kind of like staying almost on the region. And it was really, really powerful. And most people that I know who've watched it from like my background, especially, are like, you're quite tearful over it. You really get a sense of that frustration, I think, for his situation as a refugee, but also people really not understanding like the backstory of where he's coming from and where he's trying to get to often.
So many of the storylines in, well, both seasons, but in the second season, there is he's in Mexico and he is trying to get back to the US. So there is just like so much that feels extremely pertinent, right? And so very, very timely. What would you say are the kind of real key moments of the second season that kind of stood out for you?
Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the second season of Mo,
the Islamic Arts Biennial and the Sharjah Biennial,
and Beyonce's grand win at the Grammys. This is Culture Bites coming to you from the National News. I'm Enas and Farah.
And I'm Farah Andrews.
Hi Farah, how are you doing?
I'm okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. We're going to have to address a little gap.
Yeah, we have some sad news to share. Our beloved co-host Man is no longer going to be doing Culture Bites with us, which is a real shame.
It's a real shame. And
we're going to miss him
a lot. I'm lost for words.
I'm going to talk on both of our behalves, and we're just going to say that we're wishing him all the very best in everything he does moving forward. And yeah, let's kick things off with a conversation about the second season of Mo, which I understand you've really enjoyed.
Loved it.
So we are going to chat Mo with one of my colleagues, William, who is the arts and culture editor here at the National. And last week you interviewed Mo Amer ahead of the release of the second series of his show, Mo.
Mo, which is an incredibly acclaimed and popular show across the world. It won a Peabody Award. It maintained 100% Rotten Tomatoes across both seasons. It's done incredibly well, and I think it's especially resonated here in the region with
So can you elevator pitch what it's about for any of our listeners that might not have watched the first or second series of Mo?
Mo Amer is a comedian who in real life was brought to the United States as a child and had to live basically in a stateless position, waiting to get asylum for years and years. And this series basically mirrors him and his family's life, except cutting out the part where he's a successful comedian. He is working in a phone shop in Texas, and they are just struggling to get by, waiting for their asylum case to come through, dreaming of a day when they can one day possibly get back to Palestine.
And the second season hit Netflix on the 30th January. Have you watched it all?
I have, and it's worth watching till the end because I think the best episode of the whole show is the last episode.
Oh wow! Well, that keep people hooked. And you spoke to Mo Amer about the significance of this season. What were the points that you really wanted to touch on with Mo?
I think one is where this series was produced is in the context of the Israel-Gaza war. You know, this was filmed entirely in 2024. It was written with all of that in mind. But at the same time, the last episode ends on October 6th, 2023. So he very deliberately decided to eschew just being about, talking about current events, like doing it like it's the newsroom. But I think in doing that, he was able to, one, point out that the Palestinian story goes far beyond what has happened since October 7th. And I think he's also been able to comment things on an oblique way. There's a fantastic scene in the second to last episode where the woman who plays his mother and the woman who plays his sister are talking about just the obsession with watching the news, something that we know, working at the National.
Yeah.
Every single day is a new tragedy, and you can get sucked into that. You can feel powerless because of that. This is a show that is about telling the Palestinian story from a human perspective, not just a body count in a headline perspective.
It's so powerful. I cried watching this series. I think for people of like Middle Eastern background, like we really have never seen in the English language, in a comedy, like you say, he brings in comedy to talk about a really deep and dark subject and kind of like staying almost on the region. And it was really, really powerful. And most people that I know who've watched it from like my background, especially, are like, you're quite tearful over it. Do you think Mo was like aiming for that in his writing?
I think, I think a key part of the show, and he told me this, that during the entire season writing, the word that he used most often in the writer's room was bittersweet. He said, we need to make sure this is always bittersweet. That yes, we're here to tell jokes, we're here to talk about the lighter things in life, but never lose sight of the fact that there is a tragedy underneath this, and it's about not overcoming that tragedy, but learning to live on side of it. And so I think because the show never loses its North Star, when it does tell jokes, it never feels like it's trivializing the situation. It never feels like it's trying to just, make light of things that you can't make light of. But life is funny, and sometimes even the absurdities of tragedies can have jokes in them as well.
So many of the storylines in, both seasons, but in the second season, there is he's in Mexico and he is trying to get back to the US. So there is just so much that feels extremely pertinent, right? And so very, very timely. What would you say the kind of real key moments of the second season that kind of stood out for you?
I think because this is the totality of who Mo Amer is as a person, it's the ridiculousness of him being stuck in Mexico as a lucha libre wrestler who calls himself the Palestinian bear, who is being, put into headlocks and sort of things, and juxtaposing that with him being in questioning with an Israeli border officer who is, destroying his prized, family possessions at the very end. So I think really it's all of this, but I think it's that special sauce that makes it something that makes the story so accessible.
I think what I liked about this season as well is he allowed, like you mentioned, this amazing storyline between the mother and her daughter, and talking about the struggles of being Palestinian. But there's also really fascinating characters that he brings more light to, like his friend who is obsessed with America, loves America, but, has a really thick Arab accent and is kind of like in this position of just wanting to be completely American rather than acknowledging his past. Did he talk at all about maybe inspiration of where these characters have come from?
I think all of these people are inspired to some degree on the people that he's surrounded himself with, the people that he's, been in these small towns with. And also I think he's relying on the experience of these actors because he's surrounded. The people that work on this show are all amazing, accomplished people with their own experiences. And I think co-creator of the show is Rami Youssef. And I think he took a lot of inspiration from Rami in making sure that all of this isn't just, yes, it is the Mo Amer show, but this is not the Mo Amer show. This is everyone's experience. And so I think a lot of that humor, yes, it comes from, him, but I think that's all of them as well, because they're all grappling with, this sort of mix of identity and this being, stuck between worlds, and how that is just absolutely hilarious at times.
Yeah, you really get a sense of that frustration, I think, for his situation as a refugee, but also people really not understanding the backstory of where he's coming from and where he's trying to get to often.
We don't want to do too big a spoiler, too many spoilers. So without talking too much about the final episode and how it ends, do you think there's space for a third season that was originally not going to come?
Well, that's the thing. I think Mo even told me, he's like, if we do a third season, it would probably start on October 7th. And it could be, what was this last year like? What was it like to live through a lot of people awakening to the Palestinian struggle, but at the same time, the backlash to being Palestinian from other groups of people. And so I think that this would be possibly the best season of the show so far if they are able to continue, because that sounds fascinating to me.
And at the moment, it has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So
wow.
Yeah, I think he wasn't a writer. I remember talking to him a few years ago. He literally had the idea for his show, and he sketched it on a little napkin in a restaurant. He put it in his back pocket, and he kept it there for 3 years. Not because he just never thought this is something that he could really do. And I think probably being on Rami as a supporting character really gave him that, okay, no, I can do this. This is something. And I think that first season he didn't direct at all. The second season he directed most of the episodes. So I think he's really grown as a creative. And so that voice is just going to be, whether it is in another season of Mo or if that's films or other shows, I think that he's going to be producing things at a much higher level for years to come.
It's really brilliant to see that Arab creators are going from Rami setting the tone and then others coming through. Personally, can't wait for an Arab woman to kind of have her own show, because I think there's a lot to discuss there too. But yeah, we're going to see more of this, I'm sure. But I wonder if he's going to continue with his comedy. Is that his plan? He
also said that he's going to be filming another stand-up comedy special next.
Oh, wow.
So that will be coming hopefully this year.
I feel a little bit like we tried to book Mo Amer today, and then we weren't able to. And we've pseudo-interviewed William and been like, so Mo, what are your comedy plans? Please.
I'm always here to be his proxy.
Well, thank you so much for giving us the download on the new episode. So your own rating, William, what would you give it?
I don't want to give a rating to it.
Ooh.
It's just when something is, I think, that emotional, when you feel that close to it. A lot of times when I write a review, I don't have anything until the very, very end. That's the last thing I want to do. But it's still too much here to be here.
Oh, whoa.
What about
That's
you?
it. 5 out of 5.
There we go.
I'm simple.
You
Watched
haven't
it,
considered
cried,
it heart
laughed.
or head. You enjoyed it.
Yeah, watched it, cried, laughed.
But then you consider it with both heart and
I
head.
got a bit angry.
I think it was
Yeah.
probably meant to make you a bit angry. At
I think, it
stages.
definitely made me a bit angry. And then the frustration really stuck with me of like his situation. I think like this whole passport politics just gets me really, and
it's never felt more relevant
and it's
than this week.
never felt more relevant. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, William.
My pleasure.
And now we're going to talk about the Biennale.
Yeah, not bad about biennales. We're double biennialing. I'm just going to say it right now. I struggle with the word biennial and biennale. I think I must have learnt it from Venice, which sounds so snobby. And so my brain just wants to go biennale.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time you see it.
And I feel a little bit like somebody who did her year abroad in Spain and insists on calling it like Granada and Barcelona, but then just carries on speaking English. So I'm so sorry. I might say it's 50-50 on whether I say biennial or biennale. But all of that is to say that we're starting off a very interesting arts conversation with some of my most boring chat. But yes, the Islamic Arts Biennial has kicked off in Jeddah. A fascinating art is a kind of massive art show, and it takes place at the Western Hajj terminal of the King Abdulaziz International Airport in Jeddah. And what's really nice is so it kicked off at the very end of last month, and it's running until the end of May. We're going to have so many sets of pairs of biennials, but in Saudi Arabia, there are 2 biennials. There's a contemporary arts and an Islamic arts biennial, and this is the Islamic Arts Biennial that takes place in Jeddah.
And these biennials are, as the name suggests, every other year.
Yeah.
So we've got the Abu Dhabi one on at the moment as well. So there's
The public art one,
the public art one, which is really cool because it's for free and you can just wander around.
For another biennial.
No, I know. Sorry. But these ones that they're holding, are they in set locations then?
Yeah. So the Islamic Arts Biennial takes place every year, every second year. We covered that far in Jeddah, and it's a very kind of key and meaningful location as it is the meeting point for Muslim pilgrims every year as they embark on Hajj and Umrah. And when this event, I believe it was the first year that it took place in 2023, there were more than 600,000 visitors.
Wow.
So it's huge interest. Things that I really like about it, it's free.
Ah.
I went on only today to try and see if I'd be able to buy, because I wanted to make sure it was still running during Ramadan, as Ramadan is kicking off in less than a month.
Yes,
Ramadan
very
starts.
soon.
Yeah. And I was able to try and find a ticket, and then I noticed that it was free.
That is
it's
so
a very,
good.
very, very inclusive way of introducing people to these important arts. And yeah, the focus of this, obviously, as the name does suggest, is that it's very, very squarely focused on Islamic arts.
I heard that there's going to be a 19th century Kaaba staircase crafted from teak, iron, brass, silver, copper, gold, and ebony. So like artifacts that have been taken from the holy sites are being displayed from Mecca.
Yeah, and one of the other notable pieces that is on show is a Quran produced in India in the 19th century as a gift to the Prophet's mosque in Medina.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's a very... there's obviously going to be a lot of very beautiful calligraphy. It's definitely a lot of kind of works steeped in Islamic history.
Stunning.
Yeah.
I love those kind of exhibitions where you can kind of go back in time.
Yeah.
And they have at the Louvre in Abu Dhabi like all the open scriptures, so you can see like old scriptures of the Bible and the Torah and the Quran all like side by side. It's really beautiful.
And they had the it's now no longer running, but the exhibition that focused on the 3 Abrahamic religions.
Yeah.
But so many of those pieces that were part of that exhibition are part of the main collection at the Louvre. So it's amazing.
So we've got Sharjah Biennial as well.
Yeah, closer to home. So this week is a big week for Sharjah because, the Sharjah Biennial kicks off today on February the 6th. Yesterday was the big media preview day, which saw a lot of people go down and get some very lovely previews of the event.
You can see that on the national website.
You most certainly can. Our esteemed colleague Razmig will have made sure that we cover that in full. But there is always just... Sharjah is doing such an impressive job at kind of curating these really, really varied and interesting exhibitions that I just absolutely love. And the biennial kind of just really does bring all of that together in like a really nice crescendo.
I love that. Sorry. You know, when I first moved here to the UAE, I remember thinking of all the little Emirates and like, but like as I've been here now for 2 years, I really do see them like siblings, all with their own personalities and identities.
100%.
Right? And like Sharjah has got its own identity that it's carving out in this art scene.
Oh, it's
that I find so interesting.
Art scene and cafe culture is what our girl Sharjah's up to.
Sharjah.
And a lovely Corniche.
Lovely Corniche. So tell me then, what can we expect from this Biennale?
Under the theme to carry, there are so many very immersive and very like impressive different art installations. There are a lot of regional artists that can be showcasing their work at the event. So one I wanted to talk about is the Emirati multidisciplinary artist Hashail Al-Lamki, who influenced by the nature of Alain, looks to the contrasts and connections of the rugged terrains in comparison to industrial and architectural growth of the UAE. You'll know this, like something that people bring up all the time. It's like, oh, the UAE is just skyscrapers. I'm like, no. Oh, bless you, you silly things.
I mean, it is a bit. That's part of it.
That's part of it.
But it's not the whole picture.
Incredible natural beauty here. We cannot go through the whole extensive program at Sharjah because it is huge. There are more than 17 venues. There are activations, exhibitions, performances, music, film, everything. So it is more than a visual arts event. So much more than a visual arts event.
It is. And it's also, drum roll, it's all been created by an all-female panel from across the region, including Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and Turkey. Yeah,
so these events are kind of curated by panels. Well, not always. Sometimes they're curated by an individual, but this is it's 5 female kind of art curators that have brought this all together under the umbrella of To Carry. So I think there is so much that we can look forward to. I didn't mention before that the theme is mainly exploring what people treasure the most and cultural traditions that anchor them when adapting to new environments. So there will be so many people that's incredibly pertinent for, whether they are people that have been born and raised in the UAE and kind of like really honing in on those cultural traditions, and then thinking about adapting to new environments. There's such a huge percentage of the population in this country that was not born here and has adapted to living somewhere new, and then kind of seeing that in like the various metaphors. I think there'll be a lot. I don't think this is the only time we're going to talk about the Sharjah Biennial because there's so much to see and say.
Let's go together.
I would love to.
Let's go.
A little school trip.
Okay, so we are back now and we're going to be talking about the Grammys. So I think the main thing that happened, Beyonce finally got her Grammy.
Beyonce gave us a new meme.
Beyonce finally got her Grammy.
Yeah,
I mean,
not her Grammy. No. Beyonce did not get her Grammy.
The one she wanted.
She is the most decorated Grammy winner in history.
But she never got Best Album.
But she had never yet won Album of the Year.
And she did.
This year she did.
She did this week. Well done her.
For Cowboy Carter.
Yes. So a country album. So such a kind of not an expected album from Beyonce that caused quite a lot of controversy when it came out. And I think what I like about it is like her portraying American culture in her way and in her voice. And it just shows that when she was like really authentic to herself. Because do you remember her African inspired album? I feel like with this, it just felt like more true to who she is and where she comes from. even though I thought that was brilliant too.
But hasn't there been conversation? I don't know if this is actually something she's ever confirmed. I thought she was exploring the different facets of what it is to be in the American music industry with this series of albums. So there's the kind of very kind of hip hop R&B focused works, and then this kind of the country influence works that kind of prove that, like the music industry is just like, it's influenced so broadly. That spectrum is huge.
Yes.
And she produced an album that was wildly it was so broadly enjoyable. And there were very, very audible country influences.
Yes.
Very visual country influences, because we had Beyonce and a horse in a Stetson.
Cowboy hat and boots.
Carrying the Star Spangled Banner. So there was no visual confusion there. But yeah, she it is just an example of how you can kind of experiment with these genres and these sounds, and she has done that in a way that very, very few other artists have ever done. And it is interesting. This is the one that won her Album of the Year.
Rewind. So this has always been one of those things, like it's caused, like people have always spoken up for Beyonce for not getting this said award.
I mean,
and there was a time in 2017, it's still going viral, this clip, where Adele can't believe she won Album of the Year because she was up against Beyonce's Lemonade at the time.
Her artist of artists, to quote Adele in that, when she was flabbergasted. My artist of artists. I can't believe I beat my artist of artists.
So, and then there was obviously another time in 2014 where someone, Beck, won over Beyonce.
Yeah, I mean, like, we can't sit here and kind of be like, oh my God, can you imagine Beck, one of like, people acknowledge Beck as one of the greatest musicians of like modern time. So it's completely,
yeah, and Adele is fantastic. Like,
yeah, we aren't like, oh my God, Adele, who's she? Has she won an award? Like, no. I think it is obviously, like, Beyonce has had incredible career longevity, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's not a newbie. She's not Chappelle Roan coming in here with her new art, like best new artist.
This is it. I think this is, for me, this year was a real celebration for like new female artists. But we can talk about that later.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Last year, Beyonce's husband, Jay-Z, did...
Who? What? Oh,
Jay-Z. Jay-Z. Yeah, he is also a fairly famous gentleman. He won a Grammy and he got on stage and he said, I don't want to embarrass this young lady, talking about Beyonce, but she has more Grammys than anyone, but has never won Album of the Year. So even by your own metrics, that doesn't work. Think about that. The most Grammys, never won Album of the Year. That doesn't work. I mean, and then
critique.
The Recording Academy addressed what they've done.
Yeah.
And she did win it.
So maybe his criticism worked.
That's not really how awards should work. But I think we can all agree that Cowboy Carter is a phenomenal album. I think there's also something I wanted to make sure that we were all clear on without being a school teacher.
On Beyonce?
No, in Grammy Awards.
Go for it.
I might have got this wrong in the past, so I had to go and check it myself. There are 3 awards that I think are often misspoke, like they are confused for each other.
Okay.
So Record of the Year, when I think of record, I think of like an album. No, wrong. Record of the Year is awarded to the performing artist, the producer, the recording engineer, and or mixer of a specific song.
Wow.
Album of the Year is awarded for the whole album. It goes to the artist, producer, recording engineer, everybody. So that's the big award. And then Song of the Year is for the writing of a single track. So they have very distinct definitions. But I think people get Album of the Year and Record of the Year mixed up because we use album and record interchangeably when we're talking about music.
Okay. We shouldn't do that.
Well, no.
Well, we can.
I'm not here to please how you talk. You use album and record as you want, hun. It's just that if you're talking about Album of the Year and Record of the Year, they're different awards at the Grammys. And this year, Kendrick Lamar won Record of the Year and Song of the Year for Not Like Us.
Do you like that song? So if you don't know this song, it's by Kendrick Lamar. It's a diss track against Drake.
Yeah, that man has shown that a grudge can pay off.
A grudge really has paid off in this. And it is what a moment to see all the celebrities there dancing to what is a diss track to Drake.
And Drake obviously
they're not like
not
us.
in attendance.
They're not like us. Yeah, no, and Drake was not there. But there's also, we touched on it just earlier, but I really want to speak about all the formidable female artists that have just been celebrated in
It did
this
feel
year's
like
Grammys.
it was girls' night out.
And it was also so, so different. My 3 standout artists of the last year, 3, 4, gosh. We've got Charlie XCX, who had an incredible year and was really given front stage to celebrate that at the Grammys this year. So she had a walking performance on stage. Fantastic. She's a British gal.
Yeah.
Essex.
Everyone acts like not to be like, sorry, I knew her before. She's not new.
No, she's been in this game since MySpace.
10 plus years.
Yeah.
But obviously Brat was the sound of last year.
Brat was the sound of last year. It was the theme. It was the vibe. Well done, Charlie. We really support you. Also did you know that she's half Indian?
I did.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Found that out recently.
I watched the most unhinged Uber Eats promo with her and Martha Stewart. That is as chaotic as you'd assume it's going to be.
You need to share that with me. So that's Charlie XCX, who I thought was, rightly so celebrated. Then we have one of my new favourite artists who everyone's talking about. It's really not that special.
I don't know if
Doechii.
Oh, no, it's not who I was expecting you to talk about.
Really?
No, but we will talk about
Doechii. We should talk about.
It was a big night for her.
It was a huge night for her. A woman who was sacked from her job about 4 or 5 years ago and has made a Grammy award-winning album. Incredible work from her and really fun. So if you're interested in that kind of like hip hop, spoken word, really fun, jokey kind of music, I really recommend you give her a listen.
And then the other 2 girls who kind of owned the night.
Say her.
Sabrina.
Yes!
You love Sabrina Carpenter. That's who I thought you were talking about before.
I really do like Sabrina Carpenter. I thought her album Small and Sweet, and Small.
Small but sweet.
Small but sweet. Sweet but sweet. Really,
who knows?
It's a fun album. It kind of gives me that kind of like Lily Allen kind of vibe where it's almost like sing-along fun pop, but touches on quite deep, dark, naughty issues.
And at times very cheeky.
Very cheeky.
And then finally Chappelle Roan.
Yes. Take the centre stage, Farah. Give us a download. Who is she?
She's just a girl from the Midwest. Who's left the Midwest
Is
for
she in
LA
the Pink Pony Club?
to find herself at the Pink Pony Club. And when I listen to that song and I'm singing along to myself, you best believe I'm in that Pink Pony Club with her.
Great.
And I loved it. I loved her performance. I feel like she just has the power to get everybody standing up and being like, yeah, I can be my real self.
I think that's something that's really, like, if you think about these artists that we just mentioned, like all the female artists that have zinged this year, they all have such individual styles, such individual sounds. Like Chappelle Roan, if you haven't seen her yet online, she dresses in these beautifully outrageous costumes. I can't describe them. Like, think Lady Gaga, but somehow further.
Yeah. I mean, she was kind of dressed like a fairy tale princess at the Grammy. She was wearing like a pointy hat with a big train. What a varied, interesting and fun Grammys after a few years of being a bit of a dud.
Let's talk about recommendations of the week.
My recommendation of the week is something that I haven't actually seen yet, but opens today at the time of recording, so February the 4th, and is running for quite some time. And it's a new exhibition that I'm 100% going to be going to go see in Ascot Avenue called I've Got to Know You Now, We May Never Meet Again. And it's by British-Nigerian artist Sola Olude. I think I've said her name correctly. I really hope I have. And it is the pieces look so visually immersive. Like, the sea is a huge metaphor throughout all of her works, and kind of identity, modern culture, space, presence, and the pieces just look so beautiful. And that exhibition is kicking off at Ascot Avenue this week. So by the time it comes out, everyone will be able to go and see it, and I would encourage them to.
Is it like a sculpture?
No, it's paintings.
Paintings. Love. So my recommendation of the week is The Room Next Door, which I believe is still in cinemas at the moment, if you want to try and see it. It stars Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton, and it's directed by one of my favourite directors. It's actually in English. It's Pedro Almodovar. You must love him because you speak Spanish.
You know I do. And that's when I'm that Spanish student. It's like Pedro Almodovar.
Oh, sorry, of course. I don't say it very well.
You said perfectly.
Yeah, thanks. So, really interesting story about a woman who reconnects with a friend, and the woman is going through treatment, and it's about their female friendship. And the whole movie is about them reconnecting and the female friendship and the conversations that they have, which are, you know, difficult, tough, and also puts both of them at edge in that such a Pedro Almodovar way. You know that?
Yeah,
you know the way he
he's
does
very
that?
good at discomfort on screen.
Yeah. But just incredible actresses like Tilda Swinton, as you can imagine, and Julianne Moore, as you can imagine. And, you know, they play a journalist. She plays a journalist.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realise that you...
Tilda Swinton. So I am Tilda.
You saw yourself in this film.
I wish I was Tilda Swinton. But anyway, so do check it out. Really interesting storyline and fascinating script, and just shot in that Pedro Almodovar way. And if you don't know the way he shoots things, check out the film and then send me a message. Tell me what you think.
Very, 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 very visually immersive.
Yes, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you liked this episode, please follow and subscribe on your favourite podcasting app.
And check us out when we come back next Thursday. Bye.